UFC Fight Island 7 took place last weekend, and here on the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup, we're going to wrap up all the action. How you going, Jordan? What do you think of the card?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It was a great card, as always, really nice time. It's nice to get a nice early one for us guys in Europe and the UK. So, and then it delivered, didn't it? It delivered big time. I know the undercard weren't great, but it was the main card we spoke about last time is what I was looking forward to, and I think everyone on the card delivered. It was stacked card, full of upsets and big upsets as well, and I'm looking forward to getting into them with.
Absolutely. And like you said, it was a great card. But for being the first card of the year and being on ABC in America and whatnot, it really had to deliver. And thankfully for the UFC, it did deliver in folds, And even the prelims, while they weren't the best prelims, they definitely weren't the worst, that's for sure. I got up at 2 a.m. to watch the card when it started, and I wasn't too bored, so that's always a good sign. But yeah, the main card definitely delivered. So yeah, we'll start from the top. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, it was just sensational. It's just Max, at his peak. I think it's the best performance of his career. You can think of maybe Ortega, but I think Kattar had more to offer in terms of boxing ability. He had power. I think he hit Max with his best shots, and Max just, his chin's just so unbelievable at 145. I don't think anyone's going to be able to hit him. So he can kind of just wade forward with reckless abandon and do these type of things. But it was just sensational. It was. For me, obviously, we've said a few times, I think he should still be the champion. He should be the champion right now. I think that's a champions level performance, and he just showed there's levels to this game. Like there's levels, and Kattar's a very good fighter, but Max Holloway is the best featherweight in the world in my eyes, and he made it look like that. He was just brilliant and brilliant to watch. And he's usually a slow starter, but he come out for the gates really fast, and then it just only picked up from there. And credit for Kattar for hanging tough. I would have preferred to see him pulled out, round 4 by his corner, but he was defending himself. So Herb Dean couldn't really do nothing. I've given Herb Dean a lot of stick, on this podcast a lot of times. But on this occasion, what can he do? Kattar's throwing back. He's landing big shots himself, but his corner needs to, kind of step in and say, we're not going to win this fight. It's over. But another round of punishment, and that's what happened. But Max was absolutely on fire. It was brilliant to watch.
And that was the key difference between this performance and the one against Ortega. Ortega was really more of a grappling threat at that stage in his career, whereas Kattar, going into this, I thought had probably the more slicker boxing, and I was really on the fence the day before. I wasn't sure who was going to win. I thought Kattar could probably land something big and put Max away, or this could happen, what actually did happen. But I never ever saw it being as dominant as it was. It was from the buzzer. Max just put his hands on him nonstop. In the second round with those elbows, thought it was going to be finished then. Props to Kattar for being tough, but probably not good on the old brain. But, what can you do? He survived the 5 rounds. Max broke a ton of records to do with volume, striking, and landing strikes and whatnot. It's crazy stuff. And another statistic that blew my mind, neither of these fighters have ever been knocked down in their career. And that's just insane when you look at how they fight,
And especially since Kattar was, absolutely getting battered all over the place, it's crazy. And that's the thing about Max. I think Kattar's chance was to kind of nail him with a sneaky shot, and he's very much capable of that because he's a slick boxer, as you said, but he was dependent on the one shot, and you're not getting rid of Max Holloway with one shot at 145. I think you'd have to put, literally 10 punches, 20 punches together to get rid of him at this weight. He's just too big, too strong. He's gonna eat any, and then I think it proved it because Kattar, is probably the biggest puncher in the division. You've got Josh Emmett there as well, who's a big puncher. So it was just sensational. And then he's dodging, he's ducking and diving, talking to call me out. It was just one of them vintage performances that I think in 10, 20 years when his career is done is one we'll be speaking about as that was the night. That was epic. And he's 29 years old. People forget. People call him the best featherweight of all time already. And I don't think he is. I still think Jose is. But to be in that conversation at 29 years old, to have all this resume and to be putting performances on like that, he could potentially get better, which is the scary thing. So it was a great night for Max Holloway and UFC on ABC. It was a great pick in terms of a main event because you had Max, who's clearly one of the best fighters in UFC, against someone who was tough enough to take everything he dished out. So props to both guys. Brilliant main event. I really can't wait to watch Max Holloway again. I hope he gets the title shot, but also I'm not really that interested in the trilogy with Volkanovski, so I don't know what you do.
I think I do think he gets title shot off that. I imagine he waits it out and fights whoever wins out of Ortega and Volkanovski. But if I got my say, I'd like to see him fight Zabit because we really need to see Zabit tested by someone. There's a lot of people saying Zabit is the best featherweight at the moment. A lot of people think should be like getting the next title shot, could be a champion, and that's a great test for him. If he can get past Holloway, then all right, fair enough. But Holloway's, I don't want him to become one of those gatekeepers, but I think he needs another fight. He doesn't necessarily need one, but in the meantime, while there's a title fight going on, he could take another fight and, knock out one of these up-and-comers from the division and just cement himself as that number one contender. Or he just waits for the title shot. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be a cool fight considering, like, for us fight fans, Zabit, but, for the wider public, people don't know who Zabit really is, and I think he needs to prove himself against the lower level, really, because there's issues there with the gas tank. I can just imagine Holloway steamrolling him. I honestly don't think he'd be able to stand up like Kattar did to that type of stuff. So I think Zabit needs to go and earn a shot with Holloway, because Holloway, is pretty much, doing crown champ in my eyes. It's just the fact that stylistically, I don't want to see Holloway fight Volkanovski again. So in my perfect world, Ortega beats Volkanovski and we get Ortega Holloway. It's just a bit soon. It's like we said with the Whittaker Adesanya fight. It's although it's a different type of scenario where Adesanya wiped the floor with Whittaker, it's similar with Volkanovski, where it's the fact that for me, I don't really like the way their styles clash. It's a bit of a, don't know what the word is, but it's a bit of a stalemate. Somewhat. The second fight was better, but it still weren't, max like he was the other day, where he's flowing and it's really fun to watch. It does suck a bit of the life out, but the UFC have got, their business to do. Volkanovski's got a really good opportunity now to, really cement himself as a champion. A lot of people don't think he is the champion, and by beating Ortega, he wipes all that out. And if he stops Ortega, that'd be even more impressive. I'm really excited for this fight at 260. And I hope Volkanovski can go and cement his legacy as a true heavyweight champion, because right now it's kind of, where is he? I want to see the true him. I want to see him deliver. I want to see him get the acclaim he deserves. And it starts with 260.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's what we're all waiting for. Even if Volkanovski has to win there, I would still, in my opinion, I think the Max fight makes sense a third time. It was close. The first time, I don't think it was close. I thought it was pretty convincingly Volkanovski outpointed him. And the second fight, it was very close. Like I could go either way on that one. So I think it would make sense to have it a third time. But the problem is, like you said, what happens if it's the same as it was the first two times? People aren't going to want to watch that, and it's just going to lower the stock of both fighters if that happens. It doesn't matter who becomes champion, in my opinion. But who knows? We'll see what happens at 260 and go from there. Before that fight, we had the co-main event between two veterans, Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. And this fight was advertised as two brawlers who were going to stand and bang, which wasn't what the fight was. But hey, it was a pretty entertaining fight, wasn't it?
Yeah. Despite that, it went what we expected. I expected, Brown to come rushing in and Condit to be trying to counter him with big shots. But it went that it was a wrestling match basically, and Condit, he had some trouble with wrestlers in the past, and Brown's, he's really effective on top. So for me, it was very impressive to see Condit, turn the tables. I think the exchanges, they were really well matched in terms of Condit and Brown hitting switches on each other, reversing, and it was really fun matchup. And I think the right person won it. I think 30-27 on all three cards was a bit harsh, but I think Condit was a very clear winner in my eyes. And I know Brown's had a bit to say on social media, but I think the gas tank let him down, really. I think he was so tired that when Condit was on top, he weren't able to get off. Whereas when Condit was on bottom position, he was dangerous. He was throwing punches, throwing submissions, and was able to push off quite a lot. So that's all it came down to, and it's great to see Condit back, back on 2-fight win streak, and now he's a free agent. So I don't know what's next. I'm not sure the UFC will want to re-sign him. I'd imagine he's on a lot of money. Condit, being a former champion, what you do with him now? Where does he go? I don't know.
I hope they do re-sign him. I'd like to see him fight even like a Diego Sanchez or Dan Hardy if he wants to come back. I'd like to see him stay, but who knows what happens. Like you said in the fight, all three judges had it 30-27. I thought that was a bit too one side. I thought the first round went to Matt Brown just for his top control time, and that's what I thought he won it. And I understand his criticism from his perspective. Even he said he thought he lost the fight, but he thought he won the first round at least, you know. And that's what I saw when I watched the fight. Nonetheless, Condit looked pretty sensational in his grappling, better than he's ever looked before in the grappling department. So I don't think he's like done. I think he definitely fights still, whether it's in the UFC or not. I like to see him in the UFC, but you know he could go elsewhere. I don't think Bellator are going to sign him. They don't want these older fighters from the UFC, but there's definitely options for him. And yeah, hopefully we see him fight again.
Yeah, someone was saying maybe bare knuckle boxing I seen, but
oh no,
you know he's showed the wrestling, hasn't he? So he's an MMA fighter. He's got the kicks. He's got a lot to offer. So I do hope he stays with the UFC. He was very uncommittal when we were speaking to him on the media day. He was very like unsure, you know. Actually got better vibes from Anthony Pettis when he was running down his contract than Condit. So interesting times. I hope he sticks around because, as you said, in that welterweight division, there's a lot of veterans who you can match up again. You know, Nick Diaz coming back, Dan Hardy's there. You know, Diego, Donald. There's a lot going on, and I hope they all stick around and fight each other because it's still fun. There's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of fans who want to see that. So it'll be lots of fun.
Absolutely. We'll jump on to the first big upset, or the last big upset of the night, I guess, if you go from the standings. And that was Santiago Ponce Nibio's return against Li Jinliang. And I thought going into this that Ponce Nibio was going to steamroll through Jinliang, like Magny just outpointed him, you know, and Magny got finished by Ponce Nibio. So MMA maths always works, as we know. And so going into this, I thought this was going to be an easy one, and that wasn't the case. He didn't get off. He didn't have a chance to throw anything. He was very, very timid, and Li Jinliang just managed to put hands on him, put him away.
Yeah, and it was one of them where MMA maths, you know, it tells you that result, but the bit that's missing out in between is the 2 years off and, you know, being, you know, really poorly, you know, really sick and having to overcome with that. You know, he hasn't been in the gym for 2 years. He's been doing nothing. He's been, you know, recovering and just trying to get healthy. And it takes a lot out of you, you know. And I think he was saying he doesn't believe in ring rust, but it is real. He was hesitant, and it was just one of them. I think because, unfortunately, I think Ponce Nibio's moment has passed. I think he's had, you know, he's had to overcome too much and to be at that level. In his heyday, I don't think Lee would have got near him, and that's the problem. Is that Ponce Nibio got absolutely steamrolled by him, and that's a huge worry because when he comes back next, does he drop down a level? Like where does he go from here? And how easy, you know, there's just big problems for Ponce Nibio, and I picked him going into this fight, but I was very concerned about that layoff and the fact that he's been, you know, what he's been through. It's tough for anyone to come back from, and you know, we've seen guys like Dominic Cruz do it, and it's but some people can't, and some people look, you know, old, and I think he's mid-30s now. So is this the time? It was a tough watch, but it was a brilliant win for Lee. It was absolutely epic, perfect shots, brilliant follow up, and you know, nice bit of showmanship at the end, and I mean sportsmanship. Sorry, and he looked great. And I look forward to seeing his next one. And I hope Ponce Nibio does come back, and you know, maybe it was just a flash KO.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I agree. Like his performance wasn't how he used to be. He's definitely faded a little bit over the break. But I just thought he was never comfortable in there. He got in there and he just never threw anything. I think he was waiting for something. Don't know what he was waiting for. Maybe he just was ring rust. Maybe that's what it is. He just wasn't comfortable in there. And that was his downfall. The fact he didn't throw anything. I could probably count on my hand how many punches he threw in that fight. Because he just didn't have any offense, and he was just he's walking Jinliang back to the cage and just standing still and getting tagged. I don't know, it was just not a lot there to break down from his perspective. Jinliang looked really, really good. I think that was the perfect spot for Ponce Nibio to get a win in, given that Magny and Chiesa are fighting in a couple of days in the main event. If he had been on the other end of this finish, if he had been the one knocking out Jinliang, then you could have either done a Magny 2 or a Chiesa. You get the winner or the loser, you know, like that would have been a great spot for him. But now it sets him way back. He's unranked. He's going to have to fight someone like, I can't even think of a name, Bilal Muhammad or something, like a border 15 guy. It's going to be a long road back to the top if he tries to track through it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it was just a tough night for him, and as you were saying, he was hesitating to throw, and that's what you see with like the older guys. Robbie Lawler, he gets there, he gets in position, then stands there. Tyrone Woodley, he's always been a bit hesitant, but lately he's very hesitant, and he's not throwing that punch, and it is an older guy thing, and we're seeing it with a lot with welterweights right now, and but with Ponce, the question is was he rusty? Was he just kind of threw off because it's been so long and I haven't been here, or is he maybe a bit over the hill? He's a bit gun shy, and I guess we'll find out next fight. But for me, on paper, Ponce should have won that fight, even not at his best. Like even a bit like 80%, he should have won that fight. I think he's a better fighter, but he didn't, and he got convincingly beat. So where'd you go from here? But I don't want to take anyway from Lee because it's the biggest win of his career, and it was one he weren't expected to win. I think he was a huge underdog. So well done to him, and I'm sure when they get that UFC China card going, he'll be towards the top of it, and well done to him.
Absolutely. We'll jump on to the other big upset right before it. You had the knockout artist, Joaquin Buckley, winner of Knockout of the Year from pretty much every media outlet of last year. Taking on Alessio Di Chirico, who was on a 3-fight losing streak. This was the layup. This was the easy fight for him on paper. It was meant to be his coming out party. He's going to get another highlight reel knockout. But MMA, Di Chirico ended up knocking him out, and ended up getting a highlight reel finish for himself, and it just looked perfect, didn't it? Like even when the fight was starting, I was worried for Di Chirico because Buckley was getting in real tight and close, slipping his punches and landing on him, and I was like, oh, this isn't looking good. But hey, that head kick ended it all, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's MMA for you. I think Buckley, he'll go away now, and he'll, maybe. Just calm down a bit. He's just running in, and I'm so powerful, and I've got all this hype behind me, and I'm not faced by this guy, but it's MMA, and a head kick can sneak out of anywhere. And even the way he reacted on social media, I think he was like, "Well done, Alessio. You got blessed by God. Enjoy it," type thing. And that's a bit like, oh, he hasn't. He thinks it was a lucky kick, and I don't think it was. I think Alessio, when I spoke to him on the media day, he was really, he's one of them people who, it changed my opinion of the fight when I spoke to him, and sometimes you'd get that. And it was another Italian guy, Vittoria. I kind of jumped on that hype train when I spoke to him, and Alessio was someone who was like, oh, just his attitude, the way he's speaking, everything about him was kind of, he thinks he's going to win this fight. He's not coming here to, just leave the UFC with a whimper, and it kind of made me hesitate to pick Buckley, but I did anyway. And it was picture perfect head kick. Ends a losing streak, which was, pretty harsh. He was in some close fights there as well. So well done, Alessio. Buckley, I hope he comes back. He's still an exciting fight to watch either way for that division, but it just wasn't in his night. Some nights you're the hammer, some nights you're the nail, as they say. And that night he just absolutely got nailed.
I'll tell you another time I had that opinion you had just then when you saying at the fighter meeting you changed your opinion. And when Gerald Meerschaert was meant to fight Khamzat Chimaev, he was talking all this big game, and I was convinced. I was like, Gerald's going to be the one to expose Chimaev, and he's going to go out there and it didn't end up. We all know how that one went. But you never know. Buckley could come back from this and put 3 more knockout real ones together, I think they were taking him at a good pace, because usually if the guys are getting these huge highlight finishes, they'll rush him up the rankings, But they seem to be giving Buckley like reasonable opponents, especially this one. This one was like, I don't want to be like rude to Jericho or whatever, but like at this point in his career, coming off 3 losses, he's the bottom of the welterweight heap, like, right? So he was right next in cut. This was a great fight for Buckley, being on a 2-fight win streak, and yeah, for him to lose here is really tough for him. It's just gonna have to start from the beginning again, because so it's middleweight, isn't it? My bad, not welterweight.
Yeah, middleweight.
But yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, but when I was speaking to you last time, I was saying I don't really like this matchup. Like, what's the game for Buckley? I thought it was meant to be a showcase fight, but the more you looked at Alessio's record, it was like he hasn't been stopped. Mm-hmm. He's been really competitive in all these fights. I think Buckley, they could have pushed him a bit quick. Like, sometimes you hang around at the bottom enough, someone's going to beat you, aren't they? I think Jordan Wright was, one level, and then you should progress. There should be progression, but if you're taking back steps, it becomes dangerous, because then maybe Buckley's not up for it, he's not training right, blah, 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 all this stuff. But Alessio, it's worked out perfectly for him because let's be honest, he's brought in to lose,
Yep.
and he's just absolutely shut everyone up. He's shut everything down, and not only he's done that, he's got a brilliant knockout on his record. He's the man now. You know, he goes from here, and people are going to be calling him out, so looking to him to fight him next up. Well done to him. It was brilliant. It was brilliant, and I think he was about 3-1, maybe even 4-1 to win that fight, just to win it. So it was huge.
Absolutely. We'll jump on to the fight that opened the card. The first knockout of the night, I believe. I don't think that was any on the prelims. And that was when Punahele Soriano took on Dusko Todorovic. And both guys were undefeated coming into this. So someone was having to take their first loss. And early in the fight, I thought Todorovic looked good. I thought he was going to cause trouble for Soriano. But hey, he weathered the early onslaught, and then he started tagging Todorovic over and over and over again. I think he dropped him like 3 times in the round, and then eventually he found that finish. It was just a really excellent performance and a good knockout to keep that undefeated record with.
Yeah, he just couldn't hang with that power. That's what's the name? Soriano.
Yeah.
Soriano. He just had too much of him, and every time he tagged him, it looked like it was over. And I think the fight went on a bit longer than it should have because. Dusko, he was getting up, but he was like, he's like Bambi on ice. He just had nothing under his legs. The fight was over, and it went on a bit long, but it was brilliant. And as we said, this fight weren't the most exciting, but 2 undefeated fighters on a big main card, and someone goes and delivers, and now he's the next guy. Where does he go from there? Were they middleweight as well?
Let me just double check that.
Welterweight?
They were middleweights, yep.
Yeah, so potentially he could go and fight Alessio now. Him against Alessio, both on the same card. That's in a good fight, and then the audience at ABC know them. We've seen these 2 guys before. They did epic things. Let's match the. It's worked out really well for both these guys on the early fights on the card, and no more Cerrone because it was a brilliant display against someone who a lot of people fancied. So. Yeah, credit to him.
Absolutely. We'll jump onto these prelims. I've just got a couple I want to speak about because there were some excellent performances in here. The first one was the featured prelim between Wu Yanan and Jocelyn Edwards. Never heard of Jocelyn Edwards in my life before. I think this was her debut on short notice against Yanan, and she's looked phenomenal, didn't she? Her striking was excellent. From memory, she had really good scrambles in the grappling. She's had her an armbar the whole way through the first round from memory. But yeah, she just looked excellent, didn't she?
Yeah, she looked great, and especially for the debut. I think a little bit of hype coming in, and for her to go and do something like that was great in a nice spot as well on the featured prelim. So dominant decision. She goes on from here, and it's just another addition to the bantamweight division. The bantamweight division stacked. And she's just a nice addition to it. So looking forward to seeing where she goes from here because obviously when the toughest debut, I want to see her step up.
That's it. I don't want to jump on this hype train as fast as you jumped on the Agapova hype train because I don't want that one happening.
Yeah.
But she looked good, so for sure. Before that, we had the heavyweights. I think only heavyweights on the card, and that was Carlos Felipe versus Justin Tafa. Really, really fun fight, actually, this one. And that third round, I believe it was, where they just went head-to-head, forehead to forehead, and just slung shots at each other. Awesome fight. I thought Tafa did enough to win, but I'm not unhappy with the decision.
Yeah, I actually really like Carlos Felipe. I think he's really fun to watch. He's one of them rare heavyweights who's about volume, and as the fight progresses, although he's a big guy and he's carrying a lot of timber, he's able to put the output out, and it's really fun to watch. And I liked him when he beat De Castro, and then he looked good in this as well. But this was a flip of the coin, really. I thought Tafa was going to get it, but it went the other way. I don't have a real problem with it. I think both guys give as good as they got. It was like 51%, 49% either way, really. Like it was, as I said, flip of the coin. So it's sad for Tafa that he doesn't win and he doesn't get the extra bit of money that he probably deserved. But Felipe looked good as well, so I can't take away from him. It was both guys and a great fight, and it's a shame he didn't get a bonus because Max Holloway and Kattar had to go and take fight of the night off them, but it was a really good fight.
Yeah, when I first saw the fight, I literally was thinking to myself, this has to be a fight of the night. What's going to happen that can top this? And then obviously the main event happened. But that's pretty much the card. Is there any other prelims you want to chat about? We'll jump over to the midweek card.
Opening bout, I really liked Austin Lingo. I think he looked brilliant against Jacob Kilburn. Did you see that one, or was
No, I missed that one. I watched every other fight on the card, but I missed that one.
It was a good fight, and Austin Lingo, I think he might have been an underdog coming into this one, and it was one of them where Kilburn wanted to stand with Lingo, but Lingo had made such strides in striking that he was just picking him apart, and ultimately he got a wide decision, but it was a really fun fight to open the card. And despite not having finishes on that undercard, there was some really good fights. Amev against Zaweda as well was a really fun one.
Yeah,
but yeah, really good card overall. It was brilliant, topped by Holloway, and the main card was absolutely stacked, but the undercard also delivered.
Yeah, for sure. We'll jump over to the midweek card, which is the welterweight bout between Michael Chiesa and Neil Magny. I believe this was the card that was meant to be headlined by Leon Edwards and Khamzat Chimaev, but on short notice, these two they move up to the main event slot, and I think it's a great fight. I think both guys are 8 and 9 in the division. Both of them looking for that big jump into the top 5 or into these bigger names in the division, and so this is the platform to do it, isn't it? The second fight card on Fight Island, second card of the year, and what a better place to get a win.
Yeah, I think it's a massive fight for both of these guys because I'd say they're on the peripherals of the top 5 where I don't think anyone's really interested in seeing, Chiesa or Magny yet anyway, fighting the upper echelons, fighting the Kobes or the Masvidals or the Leon Edwards. I think one of them needs to go and make a statement and really dominate this fight, and then they can propel themselves into that position. In terms of who I think is going to win, no, I haven't got a clue. I honestly haven't. I think Magny's a good fighter, and every time I've watched them step up in level, he seems to lose, but I don't know, maybe this is his time. And Chiesa, he's looked good since dropping down to welterweight, but he's also fought, two people who traditionally fight at lightweight, so how is he going to deal with someone like Magny? I imagine it'll be a really nip and tuck fight. It'll be close, and it'll probably go to the card, but who wins? I haven't got a clue. What about you?
Well, breaking this one down, I think it's simple. I think it's the grappler versus striker. Chiesa needs to grapple if he wants to win this fight. That's his best asset in his arsenal. His striking's okay, but we saw in the RDA fight that was RDA? I believe it was, yeah? Chiesa's last fight?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. In that fight, we saw that he needed to grapple to get through the rounds. He couldn't stand with RDA if he wanted to get the win and the decision. I think it's going to be similar in this Magny fight, not because Magny's as technical a striker as RDA is, but because Magny's so long and so tall. And if he decides to stand with him, he's just going to get picked apart. So I think he needs to grapple, and I think he will grapple, and I expect him to get a finish in this one. We look at what he did... who was the first welterweight bout he had? Maybe Carlos Condit. Was that the person he Kimura'd? I think it was. He Kimura'd him with his own body weight. From memory? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty impressive submission. I expect him to pull something like that off, or just a standard rear naked choke as Magny gets up, grabs his back. But I think it will be the grappling of Chiesa that makes the difference here, because if he decides to stand, he's going to get picked apart.
Yeah, I think Magny's going to be a tough guy to take down, but he has been submitted a couple of times as well, so I'm interested. I'll probably do lean towards Chiesa just listening to you, and I always think that this is kind of his first time towards the top of the division, where Magny's been here a few times, and he hasn't been that impressive as of late. Like I remember being disappointed with him against who was he fighting
before?
Rocco Martin. He edged that one, and Lee, he didn't look that good, but Robbie Lawler he looked great against. But Robbie Lawler, for all intents and purposes, he's done at this level, so I think this is a really tough fight for both guys, and it's brilliant that they're in the main event and they've got this massive opportunity, and one of them's gonna hopefully go out and take it. The worst thing I can imagine if they both just stink the gaff out, because I feel like this fight's got that potential to maybe just be a bit of a stinker. But if one of them goes out and makes a statement, they've cracked it, because the welterweight division is wide open right now, and either of these guys can go and get themselves a fight. If Edwards or Chimaev fall out again, one of these are going to get the call. I don't think they're going to try and rebook that a fourth time. So, big opportunity. I lean towards Chiesa, but honestly, again, it's a flip of a coin, and I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, it is one of those. I mean, you look at the Robbie Lawler fight, and Magny looked so good in that, and he just picked him apart, and he was fantastic. But Robbie Lawler shot on him in the first round. Like, that's not what we're used to seeing Robbie Lawler do. And I think a lot of that was to do with the range. He just couldn't stand with him. And even when he shot on him, he couldn't get him down. But I expect Chiesa's wrestling to be better, and I definitely expect his jiu-jitsu to be better. So if it does hit the ground, I favor Chiesa heavily, and I think it will. So I am taking Chiesa in this. But hey, if he can't get him down, it's going to be a long night. I think it's going to be a lot of holding him against the cage, either that or just getting beaten up from the distance. So we'll move on. The co-main event is Wally Alves versus Manor Lazes. What are your thoughts on that matchup and the position it is on the card?
Yeah, it's a surprise. Obviously, this is let's be honest. This is a weak card in comparison to what we've just had and what we're going to get at 257. But it's a midweek card and it's a little bonus one. And for me, it's about 3 in the afternoon this start. So I'm very happy. Like, yeah, I couldn't think of anything worse than staying up till six in the morning to watch Chiesa against Magny, because, as I said, there's a chance it could be boring and I'd probably fall asleep. But a 3 in the afternoon, or what is it? It'll probably be 7 or 8 by the time it kicks off the main event. I'm very happy. So Wally Alves he's a game and he's been around for a while. But Manor Lazes, I think last year he made his debut, didn't he? Looked brilliant. Yep. Who was it he beat?
Al Hassan.
Yeah, he dominated Al Hassan. And I know Chaos Williams took a bit of shine out that by going one punch knock on him. But I think that was a tough fight, and a lot of people were picking Al Hassan going into that. And Lazes just beat the brakes off him, looked brilliant. I think this is a late notice call for him, so interesting to see how he looked, because he looked big when we were speaking on the media day the other day. And Alves is just a gamer. I think he's got to win over Colby Covington. He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
I expect Lazes to win. I expect him to look good, but it's one of them fights, similar to the Agapova, as we said earlier. He's just one fight in. I don't want to jump on that train too quick. He looked brilliant, obviously, but Wally Alves is a gamer. He's been here a while. He could pull something off. I'm interested to see it. It's a good fight.
Yeah, it's definitely the veteran on the tail end of their career. Well, I don't know about tail end of career, but definitely the veteran taking on the newcomer. And like you said, Lazes did look so great in his debut, but hey, he was fighting a power puncher. He wasn't fighting like a real technical 3-round war fighter. He was fighting a one-shot puncher. So I don't know how much I take from that going to this fight here against Wally Alves, who's pretty well-rounded. I mean, he submitted Colby Covington, didn't he? I think that was a rear-naked choke or a guillotine, one of the two. I don't know if I expected there to be any grappling in this, though. So I just don't know what to expect on the feet between the two. I don't know who's going to take the lead, what's going to happen. And it's just weird. Like you said, it's a pretty weak card, but that's like a co-main event, so we'll see what happens. I thought this about the Chaos Williams fight against, was that the Al Hassan one? That was the co-main, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just, you've got to take, honestly, anything on this main card, or I think even the feature prelim could be the co-main event. I honestly don't think they're worrying about position. It's all about the main event in this one. And obviously, It would have been much better if we had Leon against Khamzat. I think ideally, Leon should have stayed on the card and maybe fought one of these guys. Or it's just we lost the big fight, and what can you do? It's COVID times. You've got to roll the punches, and still, it's a good fight topping the card. And there's a few fun ones on there we're going to get into now. Moving on, light heavyweight, Ike Villanueva. I really like him. He's lost two on the bounce, and I've spoken to him a few times. We've done interviews, and I've spoken to him on media days. And he's such a nice guy. I am kind of rooting for him just to get a win, and kind of stick around. And for me, it feels like a loser leaves town fight, because Vinicius Moreira is on a 3-fight losing streak as well. So it honestly is, win or go home at this point. And I think Ike will do it. Vinicius has just looked a bit out of his depth in the UFC. 3 first round losses, what I think it's been. So if you can't beat him for Ike at this point, do you belong in the UFC anyway? I'm sure that's the mindset he's going in. This guy is on a bad streak. It's not like Alessio, where he'd lost 3 close fights. He's been took out in the first round for 3 fights. So it's go and do the same, I think, for Ike.
Yeah, I mean, Villanueva, his last fight against Jordan Wright, that's the one where he got stopped with elbows for the big cut on his head. That was the one where he got wheel kicked in the first second of the fight, like he opened with a wheel kick. Yeah, I think he's quite durable, just taking from that fight and his one previous to that. But then you look at Moreira, who's been submitted by Paul Craig and then knocked out in his first 2 fights in the UFC, both in the first round. I just going off the stats alone, because I haven't really broken down like each fighter. It's not too much on this card, but you look at a guy who definitely is finishable and someone who has been finished on their record against a guy who's quite durable, and look, he's a light heavyweight. He's got power in his hands. There's no reason he can't land something and put Moreira out. And if he gets put out, I expect him to be put out of the UFC.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Ike, and I was saying, before Ike come to the UFC, he was on about a 4-5 fight first round KO win streak. So he's known for going out and finishing people in the first round. And I was saying, is that the game plan? Because obviously you've had this streak prior to the UFC, and Moreira has got this streak of being finished really quickly. So that's got 2 + 2 = 4. It seems like the way to go, and I think it is going to be the way to go. He's going to run forward and try and take his head off. And Vinicius is going to try and get him to the ground and potentially, try and sub him on there. So I think it's going to be a quick fight either way. I think Ike will do it. I don't like the fact that Vinicius has been so easy to finish. And Ike, despite everything, he might be losing, but he's been a tough cookie in there. And I think that toughness will shine through.
For sure. And so before that, we have Roxanne Modafferi taking on Viviane Araújo. But yeah, so Roxanne's like become the fighter that they give these upcoming people that are trying to work up the ranks by the looks of it. I mean, look at her last 2 fights, especially the Macy Barber one comes to mind, where they gave her this up and coming Macy Barber. Regardless of the ACL tear, Roxanne looked phenomenal in that fight and just dominated it. And then she had a loss in her last fight. I couldn't recall who that was against though. Do you remember?
No, I think she won the last fight. I think she beat Andrea Lee last time, and then she lost to Lauren Murphy before that, maybe.
That's the one. Yeah, Lauren Murphy.
Yeah, she's a busy girl, Roxanne. She stays busy, and she's got this record since going into the UFC where it's win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and she won the last one. So just for that, I'm gonna pick her to lose this one. I don't like that pattern. It's just too perfect, and she's the gate queen at this point, and I don't mean that to be offensive or anything like that. I think she's the old head. She's very talented and she's very capable of beating all these top girls on a night. But if you beat her, I think it's a big win for your record. And I think if Viviane goes out and does that, she's potentially just 1 or maybe 2 fights away from title shot. It's a big fight for the flyweight division, which is wide open.
Absolutely, and like you talk about her record, win and loss. It's not good, but I expect her to have her A game. So just to be different from you, I'm going to take Roxanne Modafferi in this fight to win it, and yeah, hopefully see what happens there. Before that, we have the featherweights, Douglas Silva de Andrade. That was a long name that I almost butchered, against Lerone Murphy. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. Especially based off the other day, Douglas is, he's a bit pissed off, if anything. He doesn't really think that he should be fighting someone of Lerone's level. Douglas, if you look at his record, he's been in with the creme de la creme. He beat Renan Barão last time. It was Rob Font, Peter Yan. There was another big name there as well in the last 4 fights. Yeah, so it's for him to be matched against Lerone, I think he's taking it a bit, to offense. So his plan is to go in and just rip Lerone's head off and make a statement that I'm the guy and I should be in the top 5. I should be in the top 10. I shouldn't be fighting these newcomers. But Lerone, obviously, he's from my ways and he looked brilliant in his last fight. And I'm rooting for him. I hope he wins. But it is a big jumping level and it's swimming with the sharks, as it is often with the UFC. And he's jumping in with a guy, and it's a good measuring stick. If you go out and beat Douglas, you've kind of cracked it. You're onto the top 15, and I think it's an interesting fight.
Yeah, I mean, you look at De Silva's last loss, and it was against the champion, Pidian. Before that, Rob Font. But like you said, he's got all these wins in between there against real talented featherweight. This must be up in a weight class. Are they both bantamweights?
No, this is featherweight. I think his last fight, Douglas moved up to featherweight and he beat Renan Barão.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a really good fight, and it's obviously he's a newcomer, and this is why he's in this fight. But it kind of says the UFC fancy Lerone. I think they fancy you know, after his last fight, maybe they'll give him a bit of a push. It's weird who they push and who they don't, because Jai Herbert, who lost last time, he's fighting Drakkar Klose, which is a huge fight. But then you see that Buckley, he kind of had to stick around and fight people with 3-fight losing streaks. So it's weird who they pick to push. And I'm back on Lerone. Obviously, he's English. I'm English. I'm back on Lerone all day. But it's a tough fight.
Absolutely, and we'll see if Lerone can keep his undefeated record or if the veteran gets the win in that one. Opening the main card, we have Matt Schnell taking on Tyson Nam, which is an interesting fight. I mean, you look at Tyson Nam's last fight, was that not against the kickboxing guy that was like a multiple world champion kickboxer, and he knocked him out in the first round?
Yeah, these two have been lined up to fight a few times, and for one reason or another, it didn't happen. But now we're here. I think it's a really fun fight. I love watching Snell because he seems to be a go and finish or get finished type fighter. And Tyson Nam, he's got that mixed record. It's a fun fight. I think I think Snell would probably be the favourite, but it's a really fun fight, and he's on a really nice winning streak. Tyson Nam. So I think it's one of the funnest fights on the card. You know, if I'm picking an early contender for Fight Night, that's probably it.
For sure. We'll jump on to the prelims then. Is there anyone to pick out in here before we jump to news? Or
well, we spoke before that I do like that Akhmedov Tom Breeze fight. I think that's probably the second best fight on the card in terms of standards. I think Akhmedov's a really legitimate contender at middleweight. I think Tom Breeze he's been inconsistent, but again, he's another one from our side of the shows where on his night he's brilliant, and I hope he can put it together on this one. Besides that, who have we got? No, besides that, Mason Jones making his debut, huge. That's a huge one. You know, for anyone who doesn't know, double champion in Cage Warriors, stepped up to welterweight. He's on the south for welterweight event, and he just stepped up anyway and knocked someone out in the first round. He's a brilliant fighter, and he's definitely one to look out for on that undercard.
For sure. Well, that's pretty much all I had on that card as well. So we'll jump on some news before we wrap this up. Probably the biggest one I can think of off the top of my head, because we won't talk about the pay-per-view stuff because we'll do a separate one for that. But just the biggest news outside of that, obviously UFC 260 now has confirmed its main event, and the co-main's pretty much confirmed. Like, we think it's done. We don't know for sure, but I'd say it'll be done. And so it's going to be Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic in the main event, and then Brian Ortega taking on Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight title. What are your thoughts on both those matchups, and do you think that's a pretty good pay-per-view header there?
Huge. I'm glad to see Francis finally got a shot. He deserves it, and he's been sitting on the sidelines, you know, frustrated as hell, hasn't he? And this is what happens when you get to the top. You might have to wait, and I fancy him to do the business, you know. I really do. I just think he's come on a lot. I just don't. After everything Stipe's been through, can he take the same punches that he took? You know, he had to take a few punches to take over that fight, and will he be able to take them? Is the question now. And I think it's just Francis' moment, and it's an epic fight. Like, either way, you know, Stipe is one of the best heavyweights ever. I don't think me picking against him is me discrediting him, because it's not. He's brilliant, and I wouldn't be surprised if he mopped the floor with Francis. But I just feel like it's going to happen. And then the co-main event, as we said earlier, brilliant fight. I think Volkanovski's got a really good chance to cement himself as a true champion. And despite everything and dodgy decisions and all that, and the stick he gets, go out, make statements against Brian Ortega, and then potentially do the trilogy. Or you've got Ortega, who looked brilliant last time out. He can, you know, keep the momentum going, claim the title, then rematch Holloway. It's huge, because either way you look at it, that Holloway fight rematch for either of them guys is a huge fight, and then as well as the heavyweight belt being on the line. So huge card, can't wait.
For sure. And I think with that Stipe versus Francis fight, I think we'll know who's going to win that fight within the first 30 seconds, to be honest. I think if Francis can't get him out of there in the first minute and a half, it's going to be a long night for him, I think. I think Stipe will start to take over as the fight proceeds. But that first 2 minutes of the fight, it's going to be very dangerous for Stipe. And I seem to be on the same page as you. I think, given the damage he took, not only in the fight with Cormier here where he was finished, but the other two subsequent fights with Cormier, he got bashed in those ones. He might have won them, but he didn't win those fights without a fight. You know, he took a lot of damage. So coming off those 3 fights, getting finished, and then having these 2 wars, I don't see his chin being the same as it was when he first fought Ngannou. With saying that, doesn't mean it isn't. That's just what I think. But yeah, I think the first 2 minutes will be the defining factor of the fight. If Francis gets him out of there, it'll be within the first round. Out of the first round, I expect him to get the win.
Yeah, and just taking these shots, and again, he won the 2 subsequent fights against Cormier, but he did get battered in both of them. You know, especially the first one where he basically got beat up for 3 rounds and then managed to pull it off in the 4th, and then the second fight he was a bit more in control, but he took a lot of damage, and then as well as taking all them punches from Francis as well, because Francis did land on him. So they take years off your career, they take years off your life, them type of fights. I do believe that. So it'll be interesting to see how he holds up. If he holds up and beats Francis again, and then beats, you know, then he got John Jones. Like the rewards are so it's so massive, because it's probably the biggest fight of 2021. You can make either of them heavyweights against John Jones. It's huge. So I think Stipe will be on it. He'll be at his best. Will it be enough? I'm not sure. And Francis has got to come. I think this is his time, Francis. You know, it's now or never, because I think he's getting up there in terms of 80s, mid-30s, and to lose twice to Stipe at this stage of his career. Stipe doesn't like to fight a lot, so will he get another shot? I'm not sure. Brilliant fight, headline card, and a brilliant co-main too.
Absolutely. Is there any other news you've got there? We'll wrap it up there.
No, I think that's it. Just, you know, brilliant to be back. Absolutely brilliant to be back. I can't wait for the next fights. We got more on Wednesday.
Yep.
And then UFC 257.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap this one up here later in the week, probably on Wednesday or Thursday, one of the two. We'll be dropping our preview for UFC 257, breaking down all that. That'll be its own video, not with news, not with a recap of another one. It will just be for the pay-per-view. So we'll speak to you then. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.